raging wildfire in Northern California that has devoured entire neighborhoods killed 2 children and their great-grandmother, who had covered them with a wet blanket in a futile effort to save them, officials and family members said. 2 firefighters have also died and another 12 people are missing. More than 38,000 people remained under evacuation orders on Sunday in and around the city of Redding, about 257 kilometers north of the state capital, Sacramento. The Carr Fire, which has destroyed more than 500 buildings, is the deadliest and most destructive of nearly 90 wildfires burning from Texas to Oregon. The Carr Fire has charred 36,095 hectares of drought-parched vegetation since erupting last Monday. Redding Police Sergeant Todd Kogel confirmed that the 3 bodies discovered at a fire-ravaged home on the outskirts of Redding were 2 children and their great-grandmother. The victims identified by relatives on Facebook and in news media reports were James Roberts, 5, his sister Emily, 4, and their great-grandmother, Melody Bledsoe, 70. Bledsoe's granddaughter, Amanda Woodley, said on Facebook the elderly woman desperately put a wet blanket over the children as their home burned. Grandma did everything she could to save them. She was covered over them both with a wet blanket, Ms. Woodley said in a Facebook post. The children's mother, Sherry Bledsoe, was quoted by the Sacramento Bee saying, "My kids are deceased. That's all I can say." Officials said later Sunday that a 6th person has died. Tom Bozinko, the Shasta County Sheriff, told a news conference the latest victim was found after the fire consumed the home. He did not identify the person or say where in the region the person was found. Officials had earlier identified 2 other victims, Jeremy Stoke, a firefighter, and Don Ray Smith, a bulldozer operator. 7 people were still reported missing, he said. Erratic behavior. The weather on Sunday is expected to offer no relief for firefighters as it will hit more than 37.7 C with low humidity and gusty winds, the National Weather Service said. An army of some 3,500 firefighting personnel and a squadron of 17 water-dropping helicopters had managed to carve buffer lines around just 5% of the fire's perimeter as of Sunday. Fire officials say the erratic behavior of the blaze, stoked by high winds and triple-digit temperatures, has complicated efforts to contain the conflagration. U.S. President Donald Trump on Saturday declared the fire an emergency, authorizing federal funds for disaster relief efforts. At the height of its fury on Thursday night, the fire was whipped into a storm-like frenzy by gale-force winds that drove flames across the Sacramento River into the western end of Redding, as thousands of residents fled for their lives in a chaotic evacuation. The nearby town of Keswick, with a population of about 450, was reduced to cinders, and 2 firefighters were killed. Fire-ravaged home. The husband of Melody Bledsoe, who died trying to protect her great-grandchildren, wept as he recalled trying to get back to the family's house after he had left to run an errand on Thursday, only to learn that the fire was closing in on them. Mr. Bledsoe told the newspaper that he spoke to the children on the phone as he raced in vain to return in time to save them. A GoFundMe effort, launched overnight to help Bledsoe, had raised almost half of its $30,000 goal by midday on Sunday. It said the elderly couple had been caring for the great-grandchildren for years in their rental home. So far this year, wildfires have scorched almost 1.7 million hectares across the country, less than last year but still more than the 1.5 million hectare average for the same period over the last decade. California has been particularly hard hit with several fierce blazes menacing large populated areas. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection estimates more than 300 fires were burning across California as of Sunday morning. One of those, the Ferguson Fire, prompted a rare closure of much of Yosemite National Park last week, while another forced mass evacuations from the mountain resort community of Idlewild, east of Los Angeles,